Hello, everyone. Now we have a CIF High School panel moderated by John Dupree, the Senior Program Manager for Education and Training at the James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies, with comments by David Barshuk.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome Mr. David Barshuk, who is the president of the Saga Foundation, one of our principal sponsors here. Before introducing him very briefly, I must say, as he observed just before we came up to the stage, that we have a very hard act to follow. I have been involved in this business for more than 30 years, and I've seen many boring presentations. What I've observed today so far has been exceptional, so congratulations to all of you, and we look forward to even more presentations of this quality. Thank you very much for inspiring us old people to take a new, fresh look at the problems that we face. I'd very much like to welcome Mr. Barshuk. He joined the Saga Foundation as president in 2004, and has ever since worked very hard on a variety of fronts. In particular, in this field, he has been a driving force to raise awareness about the threat posed by highly enriched uranium in many parts of the world. He and the Saga Foundation supports the Center for Nonproliferation Studies as well as other organizations in the field of safety and security, and have recently broadened their scope also to assist the underserved and supporting leadership in a variety of areas related to promotion of world peace. And I think especially the last presentation by the students from the Salinas High School District was particularly interesting. I first met Mr. Barshuk at a World Leaders Summit that he organized and with Saga organized at Stanford University in 2005 that brought together elders from all over the world. And today we sit here with the youth leaders from all over the world. So it's an interesting link that we brought us back together in this. But David is a change agent, and he is action-orientated, and I think that hopefully this will inspire him as well. If I may just say a few words of introduction to this panel. Being a high school student is an exciting part of your life, but it's arguably probably the most important part of your education. This is a time when you make friendships that last a lifetime, that you learn even increasingly advanced theories. When I was your age, I had no idea what the NPT was about. I didn't even know it existed. But you also prepare yourself for the real world and to become change agents. However, being at high school can also be a very tumultuous time in your life. You are kids that are becoming adults. In fact, you are already young adults. You prepare yourself for college, and you prepare yourself for future careers. As if this is not complex enough, you as high school students find yourself in a very tumultuous world. A world we are constantly being bombarded by information, and where domestic and international security is in a state of turbulence. Yet, we see more and more young people like you, of high school and junior college age, take charge of their world and make drastic changes. Disarmament education, which is the focus of this panel, is a powerful tool to assist you. That is why you're here today and at this conference, to find lasting solutions to counter the threat of nuclear weapons and associated technologies. As the Undersecretary General for Disarmament in a video message observed this morning, you are responsible for the change in the world. Here at Monterey Institute, or the Middlebury Institute, beg your pardon, and the Center for Nonproliferation Studies, we offer many opportunities to train and educate the next generation of leaders and practitioners. But I'd actually like to make a slight change to that mantra. The next generation sits in this auditorium, and we should ask ourselves, Should you first become leaders before you make a change? Or after this conference, will you walk out of here and start making that change? We do not have the luxury of time to wait for you to become leaders to do so. Last week, I was fortunate to be invited by Dr. Alexis Chiachetti, who sits over there from York High School, to give a talk to a history class about the threat of nuclear weapons. And permit me to just read what one student wrote to me in a very thoughtful thank you note that several of them wrote to me. And I'm not reading this because of what I did. I'm reading this of what the student did. The student wrote, "I was born in China, and interesting enough, my grandparents served during World War II and the Korean War. My passed away grandpa especially believed in the atomic bomb because he believed it brought China peace and a seat in this world. Your presentation opened a newer perspective for me to think about nuclear weapons and the good and bad of it. To me, this sums up what we are trying to achieve at this conference. Change the perspective of the next generation through critical thinking about some of the most complex challenges and threats." So with that, I'd like to welcome our student panel, Saloni, Radin, Ellen, Igor, and Daniel. So far, you have heard from most of them, except for Radin. So what I would like to do is ask them briefly to introduce themselves. And in doing so, I would also like them to tell us what motivated them to come here and participate. So why don't I start with you?
Okay. Hi, I'm Ellen Bird from Hiroshima Jogakuin High School. And well, oh, sorry, I'm kind of nervous, but it's very honor to be here. And well, as to participate in this forum, I think that I already knew that this forum, the topic would be difficult, and also it's because we're doing, from students from Japan and also maybe from Russia, we will be doing this in our second language, but I thought that it is our responsibility to understand and what is actually happening in the world. So I thought, even if it's in our second language, I thought it's not just something that we can like close our eyes and try not to see that what is going on here, even if we're not an English speaker. So that's why I came here and learn other perspectives and share opinions with others. Thank you.
Hello, I am Daniel Regalado Ortiz. I'm from Alisal High School, and what brought me here was that last year my sensei, Nishimura sensei, said, "Hey, I know that you're into like all these political things and science. I guess this would be like a good idea for you to go here." And so I went here, and I was just like a visitor here, and looking at the presentations from the Russian students and the Japanese students, and from the other U.S. students, I was surprised that that there are students that are my age, in our age group, that are doing these things, and that I felt that. And when I wrote a letter to Mansako Toki saying I'm very interested if like somehow my school or my school district could participate in this. And that's what I guess what brought us here, is that I was just very inspired by the other students to do the same thing as them.
Hello. Hi, I'm Radin Ivanov. I'm from the Choate Rosemary Hall School. The reason I decided to attend this conference is because I'm quite interested in international relations and international conflict solving. And I love the idea of getting a global perspective on such like a large dilemma that we all face.
Hi, I'm Saloni. I'm from Harker. This is my second year at CIF, and I think last year I heard about CIF from some seniors at our school, and I got really interested. And our teacher, Dr. Nelson, has also been really engaging and helping us understand. And I think that the youth are the new leaders of the world, and if we don't do anything about nuclear nonproliferation, then who will, right? So this is why I'm here and why I think it's important.
Hi, I'm Igor from the gymnasium number 41 in Novorossiysk, Russia. I know that my school is engaged in the CIF conference for many years, and when it was my turn, I'd like to analyze some challenges and crises maybe connected with the modern world and find some solutions. So I took a decision to participate here and to propose some provisions, as you see in our general presentation.
Thank you. I'm sure you'll agree with me that earlier we said there are 3 nations, 3 countries represented at this conference. We have Russia, we have Japan, and the United States. If you did not know who these students were, you might have come to a different conclusion of from where they are, which is really important. As we listened to the presentations today, we heard a lot about partnerships, we heard about cultural awareness, and I think this is what is going on here. I'm going to ask a few questions, and I want the students to respond as they wish. You don't have to get up. We kind of keep this very, very, very informal. So you don't have to all respond to them, just as you think fit. So firstly, I'd like to know from you, what do you consider to be the most imminent and most dangerous nuclear threat today?
I can go. I think from the research that my partner and I did in preparing for our presentation, we kind of both found the current regional conflict in Kashmir between India and Pakistan to be quite worrying, because 2 nuclear-armed states engaged in open conflict is never a good sign. So that would be my answer to that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I guess that one of the most dangerous things that's happening now is deterioration of factual information, as seen from 2016 and even beforehand, especially now with social media, and as well as deterioration of people, not society itself, but people's interactions with others has been lessening.
I think one of the biggest risks of nuclear weapons is that there's a risk of accidental use, which we will mention in the later presentation. So I don't want to really go deep. So I think then everybody's not going to listen to us. And then but so yeah, I will just keep it here. So then everybody will listen.
Now you have our interest. So okay. Anyone, Igor, you want to contribute?
So I think I can mark maybe one challenge, because one challenge just provides the escalation of the another one, and maybe they act in sequence, and there it is considered as a problem maybe, because the challenges are involved in the entire position maybe.
Well, I agree with Ellen. Actually, I was going to say accidental use, but I guess another issue is the instability of the relationships, especially between the U.S. and North Korea and the U.S. and Russia. It's very unstable, and we never really know what's going to happen, and that's not very good for policy and diplomacy.
Thank you. My next question relates to this, and we've heard several presentations here, and I've found it quite brave of you students to basically tell your teachers that are sitting here that you need to do more, and you need to be more proactive and focus more on this topic in your classes. We at CNS obviously like to hear that, and we are stand ready to work with you on that. But do you think that nations, politicians, your teachers, your parents are doing enough to draw attention to these threats and to make the world a safer place for you to grow up in?
I guess that there has been at least like some progress being done, but there's obviously still that in many classrooms, like either here or anywhere else, that there's not enough attention in like what's happening, going on around the world. And it's like something that the students and the teachers themselves have to step up to do. It's not just one single person, but it has to be a collective group to do so.
Yeah, I think the data that the Japanese schools showed does like kind of answer that question in the amount of, not exactly ignorance we have towards the issue, but just the lack of knowledge that we obtain through like regular education. I mean, all of us here are at the conference because we spent extra hours after school preparing for it, but most of our classmates aren't going through the same thing, and they're not getting the same information about such a critical crisis that maybe we should look into increasing like the knowledge that we gain from it.
So I'm going to ask you one more difficult question before asking Mr. Bartoszak to share his perspectives. What is the one thing you think should happen to get rid of nuclear weapons and their associated risk? One thing, each of you.
I can go first, I guess. This is kind of what we're going to talk about in our presentation, so like, and I don't really want to go too deep into it, but we're going to discuss the possibility of reallocating the large amount of funding that nuclear weapons receive and putting that towards better causes in our opinions, because we believe that could not only limit the nuclear threat, but also just improve standards of living for millions of people.
I think this has been stated in previous presentations today as well, but I think that really youth education is the biggest thing we can do because, I mean, I said before, but the youth are the future leaders of this world, and if they don't know anything about nuclear weapons or nuclear war, thankfully, because it's almost been 70 years, but if they don't know anything about the horrors of nuclear war or nuclear destruction, then there's nothing that they can do to enact changes. So I think that youth education is really the main.
Anyone else?
I kind of have a similar idea to her, and well, like we think because for our younger generation, we think that because we're high school students, there's nothing that we can do to change the world. But actually, like in our school, we have like a peace activities that we're doing, like collecting signatures, and to abolish nuclear weapons, or we tour the Peace Park, which also I will mention in my presentation later. But those kind of things is kind of small, but I think we can change. It's still, we're changing the world step by step. So I think that's very important too.
So, of course, if the international community has need in the nuclear weapons, they will produce them. And in this case, it depends on the people's conscience and the education that thus can improve the situation. So the education can teach people and give them some peaceful conceptions, maybe something like that.
Thank you. You know, this is enlightening. If you ask this question even to graduate students in the class, or you ask this to diplomats, you know what the answer is? The use of a nuclear weapon. So these students here represent hope. While diplomats and operatives in this field always think about the disaster part of it. So, David, would you like to share some perspectives?
Yes, thank you. Well, it's a real pleasure to be here, and it's very encouraging as someone who's grew up during the Cold War, and I remember the exercises as a child, having to hide under our desks because of the impending possibilities of a of a nuclear event. It's, on the one hand, it's sad that we're still having to deal with these same issues now, 40, 50, 70 years later. But I'm encouraged by the brilliant minds that I'm hearing and the leaders, you know, that are going to be here to make a future difference for all of us. I would, to your last question about challenging parents and leaders, I would say that it's incumbent upon everybody to make sure that you're asking the right questions, and make sure that you're asking the right questions in ways that challenge them to do something. The problem is overwhelming. And when I was growing up, it was the problem. Now you have global warming, you have all of these other issues that are competing for the valuable airspace of the national, the international dialogue. And that is an additional obstacle that you have to get over, and a lot of it has to do with messaging. President Kennedy had an idea of what he called a kitchen cabinet. And I might recommend that we all kind of take this issue all the way back down to our kitchen tables and start our own kitchen table, our own kitchen cabinets, and challenge each other all the way down to your friends and your acquaintances to come up with ideas that we can try and make a difference on this before it's too late. Because as you mentioned, we're very good at reacting to problems when they're catastrophic. We saw that with 9/11. We saw that with other things. But there are some problems that can't be let go. So I don't want to be one to go over. So with that, I'll leave it right there.
Thank you very much, especially for the idea of the kitchen cabinet. I think I can foresee in many high school cafeterias there should be little crowds sitting debating these issues over lunch. I'd like to bring us back to this conference and the role of the Critical Issues Forum. This, as we heard this morning, has been going on for 22 odd years, and we have seen many subjects being addressed. This has been quite an effort that you've put down. I mean, we've observed the quality of the presentations and the preparation for it this morning and earlier this afternoon. So I'd like to hear from you. What do you think was one of the most challenging aspects of this project? How did you overcome it? And what kind of skills did you gain in participating in this?
Is this on? Okay. Sorry, what was the question again? The skills, all right.
What was the most challenging part of this, preparing for this, and what types of skills did you gain from doing that?
Right. I found the most challenging aspect to be picking which aspects of the entire problem we should actually look at. It's such a massive issue, and there's so many aspects to it that my partner and I spent hours looking at the internet for just like, what should we even talk about? It just seems such a colossal task to summarize so many things into one presentation. That's why a lot of groups are doing a good job of like focusing on one aspect in particular. I think that's doing a really good job. Some of the skills I've gained from this presentation have just been generally coming to understand the need for global cooperation to address this issue.
I guess that one of the most challenging parts for our group was that since all of us came from different high schools, we all had to find like one place we had to be at, and also to make sure that we were all like on the same page. And I guess one of the skills that we learned was also to like just tone everything down to have like a consensus on like what are we talking about, what are our ideas, and also on how to properly say non-proliferation.
For me, the most challenging aspect of our presentation was to find the regularity of these challenges, because we know many facts maybe about these issues, but we can't find the connection with them. So and this one of that skills that I obtain during the working on presentation. So I can find the historical, political, and social regularity in these conflicts, maybe. So it's a really useful skill for me now.
In addition to your skills in making a beautiful presentation, which I quite admired.
I think for me, especially, oh, sorry, okay. I mean, people have mainly talked about the challenges. I think for me, the skills that I've gained is especially working as a team. My partner and I spent hours together, like writing the paper and working on the presentation. And I think, like, as well as speaking skills, being able to work with someone else and being able to understand what the other person is thinking and being able to just work with them and to, like, gain knowledge from them as well.
As a representative of international students, I just want to say that it was so hard to do this in English. Like I said, in the earlier, how I overcame. We've been preparing for the CIF conference for almost like 3 months. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons how I overcame it. But another reason is that because I always had in my mind that, like I said, maybe I already said this, but because this is not just like for the people who can understand English. It's not the problem that only for the people who can understand English. It's our problem. Japan doesn't have nuclear weapons, but it's the problems there. The nuclear weapon problems are like, for all of us, it's a problem for all of us. So I had that responsibility in my heart. So that's how, I think that's another reason how I overcame this conference.
Anyone else? No? Last question about the conference. What have you enjoyed most so far? We are not even halfway there, so I'm asking you to reflect on what you might enjoy most. Going to the aquarium doesn't count at this point because you haven't been there yet. But what have you enjoyed most?
I think for me, it was meeting everyone, really, because since I live here, I only get the perspectives of everyone here. But meeting people from Russia and meeting people from Japan, you see completely different perspectives than what they teach us in history class or than what we believe or what we look up on Google. So really the different perspectives on the same issues, and like understanding those perspectives on the same issues is something that I really valued and that I really appreciate.
I really liked the Jeopardy game yesterday. Even though my team didn't do too well with 0 points. But in all seriousness, I agree with Saloni. Meeting everyone and seeing new perspectives that you might not have previously thought of does really like open your eyes to the whole scope of like the solutions that we can have.
It was really fun to work as a team. My partner is 1 year older than me, so I didn't really have a chance to like work together. But it was really fun to like prepare for this conference for a long time. And also, of course, like they already mentioned, it was really fun to like meet people and make new friends. And yeah.
I guess that also the best part about this was meeting people from all over the place. And also finding like some connections between like many people, being that despite coming from all parts of the world, we all have something in common. And also the Jeopardy game, that's also my favorite part. I'm still sad over being 1 year off. That's still sad to me. And also, I guess also the bit of nostalgia that about a year ago, I was just sitting in the very back. And I was like, wow, these people are like very intelligent. They're what they're talking about is like whoa. But then now I'm here, just sitting here, and I realize that the stage is a lot smaller than what I thought it was.
It's actually a pleasure to meet people from other countries in order to understand their lifestyle, their opinions, their thoughts, and it's quite interesting to know what their opinions on the current challenges and conflicts, and it's maybe it's a possibility to develop on them and make some solutions.
David, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things that we're looking at Saga is sort of based on how we're going to solve some of these larger problems in the long run. And it was Gandhi, I think we were talking about earlier, that said that you cannot shake hands with a clenched fist. And these problems are going to start with you, the future leaders, getting along, exchanging ideas, exchanging cultural perspectives. And I really think that therein lies the future for all of this. There's so much great work that was done today. I learned so much just from the few presentations that I saw as how, you know, it helped put things in perspective. But to go back to that empathetic message that was mentioned, that's ultimately what's going to bring us all together and give us the opportunity to go ahead and solve some of these problems and make progress on these issues that have gone on for too long.
Thank you. That's a good segue into my next series of questions. So it's a two-part question. What kind of world would you like to grow up in, or to mature in, and what can you and your generation do to secure that dream?
I guess I'll go with that. The future that I want to live in is in a world where I do not have to worry that like whoever is in charge is not going to make a decision that will probably alter everything that goes after this. And also, I'll take that, like what my current generation can do is to like increase the student activism. As we've seen, like I think it was a couple of weeks ago, there was the March for Climate Change all over Europe and other parts of the world. The year before that, it was students across the United States with the Parkland shooting. And I feel like that, and it shouldn't be like a catastrophic event that has to bring people together. It should be a collective thing that we have to like. We have to think of our future. We have to think about what are we going to do when we're older, what are we doing now, and what can we do tomorrow that we can make the world better the next day.
I think I would like to grow up in a world that's kind of similar to what we're doing right here, right now, and being able to engage in thoughtful conversation, and if we do debate about issues, that we debate with an open mind and not trying to prove that the other person is wrong like 100% of the time. I think the way we can do that is just keep an open mind of when we enter conflicts and debates so that, you know, we can keep progressing forward as one sole civilization.
Well, I think my ideal world, and probably a lot of people here's ideal world, is a world without nuclear weapons. But considering how many nuclear weapons there are right now, that's likely not going to happen for a little bit. So I think, I mean, the world I want to live in is a world where we, I guess where we're all hoping for the same thing, and it's not an unstable world where we're not worried about every day. We don't wake up every day like, is someone gonna like detonate a nuclear weapon today? Like, that's not the kind of world I want to live in, but the world that where we work, where Russians, Japanese, Americans are all together and we're all working on solving the same problem, and we're all kind of doing this. We're all together in this.
Well, like they already said, but like I'm really glad that we all have a similar opinions about what kind of world we want to live, and like cooperating internationally, like without borders. It doesn't matter like what country you're from or your skin color or language, like because we're all looking at the one same goal. So I think like even if we still have like some serious issues, I think if we can cooperate together, I think we can achieve and make a better world. And I think that's what kind of world I want to live in.
So I would like to grow up in the world. It's a world where people forget about the wars, about the conflicts, and they will have desires to coordinate and collaborate with each other. And the educational aspect in this sphere is quite strong, maybe because young people can be involved in some activities altogether, and of course find some solutions. And maybe it's a good way to make our world a bit better.
Thank you. What are your future plans? And how do you think that participating in this forum, and some of you have, and I'm looking specifically at Salome, those who don't know, this is a family affair for her. Her brother was here before and she continues. So how do you see this experience benefiting you in your future, whatever that future holds? Well,
yeah, that's right. My brother was here for 2 years, and this is my second year here. I mean, okay. I didn't expect to do any of this when I first came to high school. I was not very into international relations or into, diplomacy or politics. I was like, politics, that's not for me. That's not my thing. The politicians can worry about that. But, but I think it really, like working on CIF for the past 2 years and hearing about it when I was in 7th and 8th grade from my brother, and just being here and experiencing this with people from really everywhere around the world has really changed my mind. I don't know what I want to do in the future, but this is definitely something that's like life-changing is a bit like cliche, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It's pretty life-changing, and it's really opened my eyes to something that I never thought I would be interested in, but that's such a big deal, and that really can matter and can change the world.
As I mentioned before, I'm interested in international relations, so it's what I plan to pursue in college. That's my plans for the future, and I'm certain that the CIF conference has definitely just helped me understand what I'm getting myself into in terms of, getting the global perspective, talking with people from Russia and Japan about issues that we're all invested into solving.
Compared to like the other two, I actually kind of am having second thoughts of the major I put up for the colleges. I actually put up myself as a music education major, as I want to become a music teacher, since I love liking to teach and doing music. But I realize that even if it is doing something at a local level, there's that no matter like whatever the subject it is, you can like incorporate something with internationalism, being that exposing the students to different cultures and having like their perspectives change rather than having just playing Western music. You can have music from anywhere else. And so either that or I'll just probably minor in international relations, which is probably what I will do too.
Oh, well, for my future, in my future, I want, because I'm, as a person who has 2 nationalities, well, I have 2 nationalities, actually, and also, as, what was the other one? Okay, well, never mind. But so I want to become like a bridge between, like, America and Japan, because that's who I am. It's like my identity. So, that's my future, goal. It's very wide, but so this conference was like I don't know, but I talked. There was talking with like a lot of people from a lot of different countries, and we're doing all the same like activities and all those stuff, that was like, I don't know, it kind of made me feel like, oh yes, this is what I want to do in the future, like cooperate with others and trying to say, I don't know, change the world maybe.
As for me, I'm really interested in the international law, and I want to be involved in some maybe processes connected with some regularity of the international relationships. And I recognize that CIF conference confirmed that I am on the right way.
You definitely are. I mean, I sense here a life-changing experience through some music, opening up new partnerships across things, and perhaps influencing the negotiators between Russia and the United States. So my last question, and I want to reflect on two profound statements made today. In his opening remarks, Dr. Potter shared with us very wise words. A nuclear war cannot be won and should never be fought. In the last presentation, there was a very profound statement right at the end, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, permit me. Build cultural awareness and prevent the disaster of nuclear war. So my question is, if you can take one message from this conference to share with the rest of the world on Twitter, what would that be?
On Twitter?
Please, get the ball rolling.
The message I would share is listen to each other when it comes to the issues that pertain to all of us, because we all have different opinions on this, and the opinions might not always contrast. In fact, they might usually support each other, and that's what I think we found out here, is that if we all work together, then the issues become smaller and smaller until they're no longer issues.
I guess the message I'll say is that we all live in the same ball of rock, so we might have to get well together.
I'm in more Instagram, so it's kind of hard to answer, but sorry, just kidding. But I really want to say now, but I can't because it will be on our presentation. I'm so sorry, but it's it's on the very last slide. So yes, I will. Just don't sleep, all right?
No one will.
I think for me, the message I would say is that once nuclear war is started, no one wins. And while some countries right now may think like we can win this war because we have one more nuclear weapon than you do, no one's going to win once a nuclear war is started, and that's something that I think people really need to understand. Once one weapon is launched, it's end game. Game's over. So, yeah.
Igor?
So my message will be like that. Forget about the conflicts because it destroys ourselves.
Very profound.
Yeah. But I actually don't have an account on Twitter, maybe.
David, last word to you.
I would have to say that in this world that seems to be swirling so much down the drain with bad news and territorialism and all of that, that when I come to events like this and I'm so impressed by what I see, the one word that I would see is that there's hope. And there's hope in the world of ideas. And take all this great knowledge that you've been able to put so much effort into accumulating and plow that back into ideas that are based in hope, and I think that we'll have a good outcome if that could be the case, because the alternative is just not acceptable.
Thank you very much on that message of hope. Let me, on behalf of everyone, thank Mr. David Bartoszak, Igor, Saloni, Radin, Daniel, and Ellen for excellent participation in this panel. Thank you very much, everyone.